we are going to be talking about the show and doing a detailed analysis on something very bad is going to happen. Enough with all the intros of being overly dramatic. This show was really interesting. The foreshadowing, not only in the show, how the curse has been imparted for hundreds and hundreds of years. Because if you don't really believe that somebody is your soulmate, you are going to have that same fate, or you project that onto the other person's bloodline. So there's interesting things that happen in the show, the foreshadowing of the VHS tape that is being filmed of her mother dying and getting a C-section birth on camera, literally pulling the baby out of the stomach. And it is a story that is based on this woman wanting to be married to this guy. He has a very weird family. His father's a taxidermist. His sister's really annoying and tells scary stories. And his brother and his wife don't really gel or mesh together, but they're soulmates and they got to live while everybody else got to die. I know I'm spoiling things, but the things that I do want to point out in this detailed analysis is the very fact at the very end where she is getting married. Her boyfriend thinks that it's a good thing to not marry her because he thinks that it's going to break the curse. And then she ends up dying and then taking on the burden of carrying out the deaths when she could have just done the blood ritual where she cut off her toe and got his semen and got blood from the guy who carries out all the deaths at the bar, the swan dive. And just the foreshadowing of like how the dad had to undergo that, and her dad, the main character's dad, was out of her life for a very long time. And literally the family making marriage like a very big thing when really apparently the mother's husband was not her first choice is another thing. And then like the boyfriend of the girlfriend idolizes that. And so there's like many ways that the girlfriend like goes in search of like how many people have actually died from this, and it was like hundreds and hundreds of people. And the spirit of one of them was actually possessing the younger daughter during a bachelorette party. So it's like all these things happen, and free will is paramount. And the girlfriend just had this fear of dying. Like that was like, I don't want to die. She doesn't want to die. She's like, I'm not feeling this marriage anymore. I'm not feeling Nick. And then they have this huge argument after he rejects her, right? While, before everybody just like has blood dripping down their face and dies. And then when she comes back to life, it like won me over. It was like at first, if she died, I thought it was gonna like just be awful, but it goes to show that like free will is paramount, and like people's sense of like morality and how they're like wanting to save their own ass because like the whole family didn't want to die, but like she had to bear the curse. And then she got rejected and she was just like no, and she didn't go through the ritual, she didn't go through the supernatural ritual to like save herself. And then it backfired because she believed and then he was in disbelief. And then there's some other elements that like in the beginning where it kind of showed like a family portrait, like how they're just kind of like off. And then that element kind of goes away, and then they kind of see the coldies like in the VHS tape with the ice cream shop and like the cabin and stuff, and like how she didn't know her mom for 7 months. And uh, it, then it just goes more and more into like revealing how much the boyfriend is like such a little wuss and weasel, and how like he's really the problem of like this whole thing. Like he's kind of like non-existent there. And like she goes on like a journey of like discovering this curse, like knowing that like she has to believe in like him being her soulmate. And but she's like looking at him like at the party scene, and like I think it was either maybe the fourth or fifth episode. And just like looking into his eyes and seeing death, like looking into his eyes, literally seeing death. I'm sorry, if you have a soulmate and you look at him and you see death, there's something telling you something. There's something wrong. And then what's interesting is that the guy got to live. The boyfriend who rejected her got to live, and she died and got to be the one that carries out the curse. I thought that was such like screwed her over, screwed her over. Not only that, but like there was like so much where they were like fixated on her like wearing the old wedding dress, just wanting to like indoctrinate her into like the family. And then she figures out that her boyfriend like didn't wasn't like out of like a relationship just yet, and then she was like a rebound, and then that was like a whole thing, right? So I guess it just goes to show that no matter what you do, no matter what you do, um, you can only really believe in curses unless you really believe in them. And like a curse has to have so much intentional power and light being stolen to even perform it. But she had a realization and didn't go through with something that was completely dark, horrible, like cutting off her own toe, like blood magic, and then he backs out at the very end, and he caused like everybody else to die because he thought he was doing the right thing. This is why I tell people all the time that free will is paramount, and that people can really change and jack up timelines and just turn it into something completely. And also the performing things over and over and over again. I mean, they led to believe that like the family was going to like cut her up and open her up as like the wild man, or you know what I mean, like cut her up, and then they were making that about the dad who had to give a C-section birth and pulling out the baby. And then everybody at the end just dies, blood dripping down their face. Everyone just dies who like even is married, but they don't believe that the soulmate is the soulmate. And also, like the seance was not even like bad. They were just communing with the dead, but then like I guess one of them had it out with the other. And also, there's a scene in here where she's possessed, like for just like a brief second, which I don't necessarily want to call it like possession, because she's like channeling them, because not every entity is a bad entity. Um, and and then the whole thing like comes together because it started off like the dad had like the old scarecrow thing like at the in the back on a forklift and like hanging, and they thought like she thought she was gonna like be buried alive and be part of like this occult thing, which didn't happen. And then also like uh, I think she pretty much indoctrinated herself when they sat around in a circle talking to the scarecrow thing. Um, Talking to the scarecrow thing, like talking to like whoever passed over. And then the thing howled. So basically, she put herself energetically like connected to everybody by doing that, even though it was her idea. This is what I mean, like with free will. And it's like they didn't have to have the seance at the bachelorette party, which I thought it was not bad, because it wasn't like they got the Ouija board out and had a you know too bad of a time. Um, but then it like turned into something negative because they wanted to figure out like living dead, basically like even though you're living, you're really dead. So this is kind of like an analysis of like kind of figuring out like why people um, repeat these actions or repeat these patterns, because her mom did not believe, and then the guy asked her, are you sure he's the one? And then she ended up not being able to live and give the life to her daughter. And so what's interesting, and then the son sees the same thing as the older brother seeing the C-section being performed, which was horrific beyond belief. Like as a child, like seeing everybody just die, it was be horrific. um, and also just like the starting of it all, like the baby in the car, and then her going into the bathroom seeing a dead fox, which was alluding to like the hunting that the dad did. um, and then like the guy she stabbed him twice with the key. That was kind of like, oh, he's the key component to this whole thing, right? And then she does it again with the champagne that she's drinking. um, so what's interesting about this entire thing, and is really just to go to show that if you do have a curse, I just want you to know that no matter how powerful it is, or um, because some people can have curses and it not affect their life, and then there's some people that do have curses and it does affect their life. But most of the time, when you awaken, you'll break away from those imbalances, and you won't be condemned to that forever. It's just finding where you need to go to kind of find absolution. And so it's kind of like, um, there was like no finding like absolution in this whole thing. Like there was a part of me that just wanted her to fully go with, because of the way her boyfriend was like so into like marrying her and thought he was doing the right thing. And that's the thing, he thought he was doing the right thing when in all actuality he was flat out not. And he screwed her over. He completely screwed her over. It was just blatant. And then like when she died and then came back to life, and then went in the truck of just married, and it was like, it was almost like she was happier. She was literally happier going to be condemning people. And then it all made sense. Like it also didn't make the show like just fall flat, you know. So that was something that was kind of like reinforced as well, was like she actually was more in bliss smoking a J, being in the truck, getting the ring off of her. It's almost like she was delivered from something. Like she like walked into this whole like nightmarish thing of dealing with this family for an entire week, losing her wedding dress, also having to like uh, try the dress on of like the mom beforehand, and like Portia having obsession, and like everybody just wanting to make the decisions for the bride and the groom, which was just insane, just insane. And I think like the whole thing was like, she's like, I'm going to perform this ritual. And then she backs out of it just to see this guy. And then he's laying on the bed with like, and showing his true color because he's a coward, because he's a coward. Like he's straight up, her boyfriend's a coward. And then it's like, no matter like what you do, it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. That's what this whole thing like was about. And like also like the entity like floating around, like going towards like everybody, and uh like she could see it, but not everybody else was connected like that. Like, like her mom was prophetic in the way that she was like, I'm trying to tell her something, like in the scene, like I'm trying to tell her something, like she's gonna die, like she's not gonna live, something's gonna happen to her. I'm trying to tell her, like she wants to really tell her something and she can't because she's a baby. And that's kind of really true, even though it's a horrific scene. And like, but this show, even though it has weird stuff in it's really weird. um, it's really out there, you know. And also, like when she got into the box and said, "I have to do that thing before she was, with her boyfriend," was really weird, and they never explained that. Like, what does she do? Like, I have to do the thing. Like, I honestly, I wish they would clarify that, but they didn't. Um, and then it's like everybody just was really about themselves. And the only two people that weren't really selfish was the married couple. Nope. believe that they were soulmates because they were. They didn't die, and they got to keep the son. But the whole thing, like, your sense of morality is tested because, like, for me, uh, there's a part of me like I wouldn't want. I don't want to condemn people. You know, I don't want to like promote harm and like all that. And then, but for her and her perspective, it's like she didn't want to die for something like she had no control over, and she wanted to be delivered from the curse. Um, but then, like, it ultimately, I think she was more happier being the one that carries out the deaths and the contracts. She was much more happier doing that than anything else. It seemed like she was more in her bliss or more like who she was. And I think that's what's sad about the whole thing, about that something very bad is going to happen. I think that's what's sad about this whole thing is that uh, this isn't really a review. This is more just kind of my analysis spiritually on it. Is like, how far do we really go for love? How far do we really go to like find the truth, and we find and we see what the truth is, and we don't like what it has to entail. And then it was like, she should have left like a long time ago. Like, it was just bad news altogether. And the fight was significant, like the fight between them, like actually expressing how they felt about each other. Like, I bet most couples can like relate to like certain things of that, because they were like saying like, you make me feel like I'm suffocated, you make me feel like I can't be myself, like I can't be who I am. And it was like the true colors of them, like they weren't really in love with each other. They just like thought they should have been married instead of really believing in it. It's the same thing with intentional work. Like, if you really don't believe in your intentional work, it's not going to work. If you really don't believe spirit's going to take care of you, spirit's not going to take care of you. It's just crazy, crazy all around, just crazy. That's my spiritual analysis. I'm going to watch this back. um, but this is my spiritual analysis of something very bad is going to happen. It may happen to you.